Oh. Hello, welcome back to another video of me performing a heart transplant on this Fiat 500 TwinAir. I've got all of the front clip off, removed the cooling hoses, moved the intercooler. Before we move any further, there are two things that I want to take a quick look at. Now the first, when I pulled off this intercooler hose, there was a hell of a lot of oil that came out of there. You saw it spill into the coolant in my catch tub thing. Now I wasn't expecting nearly as much oil to come out of this as it actually did, and if I kind of like push that down like that, it's just about to drip out loads of oil. So what I want to do before I pull everything out, I'm gonna see if I can just, I don't know, remove this heat shield, have a look at this turbo a little bit and see if we can just kind of like spot anything untoward kind of just by eye. And also what we need to do is we need to unwrap this new engine, because I'm not sure what's on it. I don't know like what pipes, hoses, if any of the ancillaries. I'm just not sure. I know that scrapyards, when they get an engine in, they like to just cut all the hoses, so most of that sort of stuff that's on that engine in there, I imagine, is going to be trash. Okay, so let's go back to just looking at this turbo briefly. So I was just looking down here, and I don't know if you can see in there, there's oil in the intake pipe. If I shove my finger in there, that is a lot of oil in there. Now I know that a little bit of oil kind of in the intercooler, in the intake, is normal, but this looks rather excessive if you ask me. I mean, look at that, that is absolutely terrible in there. And so if we think about some of the things that we do know about this engine, it's that it was putting out blue smoke at one point, it didn't have compression, and now behind the scenes I've been doing quite a lot of work just trying to teach myself all about cars and engines and stuff. You know, I've said before, I've been reading textbooks and watching lots of YouTube videos, just trying to get like the general fundamentals of, you know, what is going on in an engine. And so I'm trying to look at all of these things together, and you know, it's quite complex for me, a noob, right, to wrap my head around what all of the different things that could have gone wrong with this engine. But I'm thinking, right, we had oil starvation, so there's a large chance we had sticky valves, or more than likely we think sticky piston rings. Now if you've got sticky piston rings, you're going to have a ton of blow by, it's my understanding, because all of the combustion gases are all going to pass down past the piston into the crankcase, and then likewise you're going to have oil shooting up into the cylinder head. I'm thinking that potentially loads of pressure got built up in the crankcase, like way more than normal, and that may have shot oil back through the kind of like the oil return maybe, or it's built up loads of pressure just into the turbo, and then the seals on the turbo probably just failed, and then that is what has pushed an inordinate amount of oil into the intake and into the intercooler. I could be completely wrong, right? Like I said, I'm teaching myself. I mean, I have literally got this massive textbook. I've been reading all of this stuff on crankcase, positive crankcase ventilation, and I mean, this is a monster of a book. I've said it before, but if you want to learn the fundamentals, if you're not a mechanic and you want to get into stuff, just, this book is fantastic. There is a link to this book in the description below. Spoiler alert, it isn't cheap. So I think what I want to do is I'd like to have a look at the turbo and see if there's a way that we can inspect it, just to see if I don't know, it's obvious to see where loads of oil may have been leaking or filling up the chamber or something along those lines. And if you're a mechanic and you think I've got that wrong, please do chime in the comments. This is not a channel where I'm professing anything to you. This is very much a channel of me just kind of learning out in public, and I actually want you to help me work out what is going on. There is something in my eye. Get off. Ugh. Come on. Easy does it. Okay, what have we got then? I have no idea what I'm looking at. What is this thing? Is that some kind of... So that goes along there. I don't know, yeah. No, what's that then? So that goes down there. so coolant, so that's a coolant line because that goes up into there. Feed pipe, big one here is going to be a, where's that go? That goes around there. Is the PCV valve. So I mean, I think that one there is going to be the oil feed line, and then this one's going to be the oil return line. So would it not make sense to pump the oil in, gravity drain it out of the bottom? But I mean, in terms of oil leaking out of the turbo itself, nothing. So you've got the exhaust gas spinning this part. It might be pushing oil, and I'm only saying that because I did watch a video where someone said that could happen. There's just so much to think about. I think I might just do a naturally aspirated engine for the next one and just see if we can remove some of this complexity, because there's a lot of, like, literally there's a lot of moving parts, but there's just so much to think about and so many different factors like impacting. And I'm going to say this right now, anyone who thinks that being a mechanic isn't a particularly skilled job, I'm talking about snobs. You know, this is really quite complex. You have to have a real good think about it, and you have to have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge. So hats off to all of you really good mechanics. I'm not going to go any further investigating this, only because I don't want to just start pulling stuff off that actually needs to stay in here and is going to help me later down the road. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and unwrap the other engine that I've got, see what from here needs to stay here so that I can swap them out. I am seeing this engine for the first time just as you are. All that I know is that this engine is kind of less ancillaries. That's all it said on the eBay listing, and I don't really know the full extent of what that means. So we are looking at a very... No, actually there's quite a lot of gubbins still attached to it. So this is the front of the engine. This is where we were just looking in the car. Obviously the block's got a bit of rust on it, but I think that's likely to be normal, right? So this is what I was saying about they just cut the hoses. You can see where rather than remove the clip, they've just gone whoop. And then the same with this hose here. That is one of the coolant hoses around here. So that's the rear main seal, and I know that because I replaced that on the Mini, and that all looks good. See, on the Mini, all of this area here was absolutely coated in oil. It was really quite bad, and that was all because this rear main seal was leaking. So in my eyes, I'm looking at this now and I'm seeing there isn't loads of oil like that. So this rear main seal is probably just fine, so I don't have to do anything with that. Okay, so when I come around to the top side of the engine, okay, so yeah, this tube is snapped. This tube snapped. Okay, and then if I come over to this side, okay, so we've got connectors. I can see, but that one there is cut. Okay, I can see spark plugs in there. Okay, so this is giving me a good idea now about what I might need to replace and what I don't. Okay, can you see all that in there? That is some kind of leak that I think looks like it's coming kind of from in there or in there. You can see a bit of oil up there. I mean, the thing with this is that could be a leak, or it could have been something that just leaked onto the engine. So what they've done is they've come in, haven't they, on the donor car, and they've cut there, they've cut that hose there, they've come in here, they've cut that hose. Okay, so it's now the next day. So I actually packed up all my stuff early last night because I thought, right, I'm gonna go find some proper workshop manuals for this car, you know, find a load of information online, some parts diagrams. So I went and did that, and there's absolutely nothing. I could find almost zero. There's a couple of places where it looks like you can buy the kind of like online e-learn Fiat digital manual thing. I did get one of those, and I managed to finally get it installed on the computer, but it doesn't cover the TwinAir, just the other models of 500. Couldn't find any parts diagrams for this thing. I was just following loads of like dead broken forum links around everywhere, so it was complete a waste of time yesterday. I hardly got anything done. And then I kind of worked myself up into a little bit of a tizzy, just trying to formulate kind of the best, most efficient way of doing an engine transplant. You know, like, am I going to leave these certain pipes in the car? Are these ones going to come out with this engine, and then I can pull that engine, and you know, is that hose staying, is that good? And then I came to realise that the reason I can't actually make a plan like that, you know, a really efficient, nice plan, like I'm sure there's a load of you sitting at home who've done this before and you know exactly where you got to go. I don't know all of those steps and all those details, and without that detail there's just no way I can make a proper plan. So So this is what I've decided on doing. I'm looking at this now, and I basically just have to kind of like screw efficiency, and I have to just kind of get the job done however I can get it done, what's best for me personally. I am simply going to focus today on pulling this motor out, and then I can kind of put the two side by side, transfer some parts, and then put one back in. That's the best way for me to approach this problem. Okay, how about this for a noob screw up then? You're gonna like this one. So the other day then, before I put this car up, I took the axle nut off this side. Now, one thing you should know about these axles is that I've got a 36mm socket. It doesn't really go in there. It's really real tight fit. But I did manage to get it off. I just kind of like hammered it on, and the axle nut came off. Well, what I actually forgot to do was the other side. No joke. So I've got the car up like this, you know, and I'm just like, oh my god, I forgot to take this other axle nut off. I was just so pleased with myself and doing the other one. So I just thought, oh, okay, I'll just try the same trick then and get this on there, hammer it on. But I'm telling you now, this isn't going on there for love nor money. It just does not get enough of a grip. So it turns out, completely unbeknownst to me, that for these Fiat 500s and also for the Ford KA, you can actually get a special thin-walled socket, specially designed to go on here. And now obviously it's Thursday today, so tomorrow is Good Friday, and it's just Easter weekend, right? So absolutely nobody can get one of these tools to me for about 5 or 6 days, and these drive shafts very much need to come out so that I can get the gearbox out. So I think what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to try and cheat. Here's what I've done. So I've undone this hub carrier thing from the strut. You can see it's kind of dangling down there a bit. When it comes to it, I'm going to undo the bottom ball joint as well, and then with this still attached, I'm going to lever out the drive shaft on the gearbox, and then I'm hoping that this just gives kind of enough movement that I can just move this out just enough to get the drive shaft out of the gearbox with the diff. What an absolute carry on though. Forgetting to undo one of the axle nuts. I mean, you can't get more noob than that, can you? You literally cannot get more noob than that. Okay, here's where we're at. This is probably about an hour later. All of the wiring harness is all disconnected. All of these little plugs. There's a load down here, down the side. I got down there and I've disconnected the alternator and the starter motor. I've removed the fuel lines. Battery was already removed. There's a load more plugs down here. There's a heater hose there. There's another hose of some sort there. So kind of like all the little bits and bobs, all the cables and all these kind of like vacuum lines and things. As far as I can see anyway, they've all been removed. I've left a load of this stuff on because this is actually just all attached to the engine. So I think what's next now is I need to remove the cables there. Actually, I've missed those for, I think they're lambda sensors, right? And then move on to like bigger bits really. So I'm gonna have to work out how to remove the exhaust. And so there was a few people that left comments on the last video saying really what you should do is you should label all of these plugs. What you can see is that I absolutely haven't done that. And it's not because I'm trying to ignore people or I think I know better. It's just that when I did this on the Mini, I also didn't label anything on the Mini. I think I labelled like maybe 1 or 2 of them. But what I really quickly found out was that these wiring harnesses are made to fit, obviously. And so it's really difficult to get a plug in the wrong place. You know, so if this scoots on there like that, you can see straight away, well, that goes there because it's the only place it can go. That goes there because it's the only place it can go. And you find that kind of just like around the whole engine, you know. These cables will droop down there and you'll find that they're 2 different plugs, and then again. So look, I can already see that goes there, that one goes down there. that's the only place they can go. So I'm not too nervous about it. That's how I'm approaching this. I did also take a few snaps on my phone just to get in there, just to make absolutely sure. But oh, we also need to remove the gear linkage actually, don't we? I've just remembered. Okay, now if I've done this right, I should be able to like pull all this stuff through and then just start kind of plonking it out of the way like that. And then that is an unplugged engine. Okay, so I've just taken the heat shield off the cat there. I think that's the cat. And so I'm looking at it and I'm thinking that must be the fitting there at the top. And then, I mean, what's the crack? Is that a push fitting? Does that just slot into this part before the flexi? I mean, I don't know, I'm asking you. I think I'm just gonna whiz those bolts out just as ever, see what happens. Right, so under here, oh no, I think that's got to come off all the way actually. Right, so I've pulled that out all the way. And now, okay, well, what does that mean? How does that, I mean, that's a gasket in there, and that is where things butt up to one another, isn't it? But I'm just assuming now that this is just pushed on, this cat into the turbo. I can't find anything online again, so I'm just gonna make the executive decision to take said screwdriver and said mallet and if it goes then oh yeah, yes, that just, okay, oh, it's a tiny little lip it's sitting on. It's hardly anything, that's off. Oh, nailed in the neck with a gasket. Oh no, I probably shouldn't have done that. I've done it the wrong way around. Oh. Okay, well that's the wrong size. Oh, stop doing that, wow. Okay, this bolt is seriously corroded. Right, let me just hang this back up properly. So this is the nut that I'm dealing with. So it's so corroded. That should be a 13, but you put a 13 on it and it slips off. You can't really get a 12 on it, and it just doesn't want to know. But I mean, look at the state of those threads. They're so far gone. They're so brittle. I think I'll probably just cut it off and then get the old bolt extractors on it, I think. Okay, it's actually a new day, new t-shirt, but not new tools. We're on a budget still. I'm still using a junior hacksaw. Gloves. Okay, I give in. First fancy tool I'm buying is going to be a Dremel. Then a really proper, nice, heavy duty impact wrench. I think those two things would save me a lot of this. Oh, finally. Right, now all I'm going to do is get my bolt removers on there, I think, and just give it a good old tug. Tug. So childish. Got some kind of movement, but I'm not sure what kind. Oh, well. There we go. I snapped the bolt. It didn't matter. The clamp's off. I may have mentioned these bolt removers once before. They are This is it's an Irwin kit. You can get these on Amazon, right? These things have never once let me down. I've used these on cars, I've used these on a push bike, I've used these on a garden gate, like all sorts of things over the years. They have never once let me down. Yeah, I know the bolt snapped, but that was the bolt. But they are absolutely fantastic. And they're really, really cheap. I will put a link in the description below where you can get these. Like, I just think they're an absolute must-have. They've got me out of so many tricky situations. Oh, lovely, look at that. Hang on, is that gonna, no. Ah. Oh, we're stuck. We've got a wire stuck. So I just came to take the axle out of the gearbox on the inside, and so I tried my little trick of undoing the knuckle and the lower ball joint and then just pulling this all outwards, because I can't take this off, don't forget the axle nut, because I'm an idiot. And that has, if you can just see it, just allowed me to pull that drive shaft out of the gearbox just enough, and thank God for that, because I'd have been really stuck if I couldn't have done that. So I think now I'm ready potentially to pull in the crane, hook it up, get these mounts off, and then I think pull it out. And this shouldn't be too difficult because this is a really, really small little unit. I mean, you know, like the cylinder head, my hand takes up 3/4 of the size of the cylinder head. It's absolutely miniature, this thing. I mean, I suppose 2 cylinders, it's half an engine. So I came down here, I've removed this big ground cable, I think it's a ground, I don't know. And for some ridiculous reason, I don't know why, but instead of just pulling the slave cylinder off like I have done now, I actually pulled the like the hydraulic line out, so that started to drip brake fluid everywhere. I honestly, I don't know what I was, well, I know why I did it, it's because I'm intensely hungover, that's why, but so now I'm going to have to re-bleed the slave cylinder, and if you've seen any of my mini videos, you'll know that bleeding slave cylinders is my absolute favourite thing to do, so really looking forward to that. That is the engine 99.99% out. It came out with hardly any fuss whatsoever. Now I say 99.99% out because, very annoyingly, the entirety of the wiring harness is actually off, apart from this one single cable that goes down behind the alternator. Down here, this looks like a crank sensor, and this is way too big to fit through the little gap up there. So it's very annoying, so it means I'm going to have to take the alternator off, and then this thing here, this bracket that holds the idler pulley, I've got to get that off just to get this one little wire out. But as soon as I do that, that is my second ever engine removal. And yet again, I know if there's anyone watching, you might be getting a bit worried. I am going to degrease and jet wash all of this, don't worry. And I'll be honest with you, I was way less nervous about doing this the second time round. You know, my confidence for this sort of thing now is really gone up. Even though I've only done one engine removal before, like, I'm just, you know, I was a bit of a wreck actually when I was doing that mini one, you know, just really not sure what I was doing. But I think now, you know, once you've pulled an engine out, every time you do it after that is kind of the same thing. Now I'll kind of take it back what I said earlier about, you know, not labelling all of these plugs. I think actually on this engine that might come and bite me in the arse, unlike the Mini, but we'll have to just wait and see. It's too late now, it's all out. and it is spaghetti junction in there, but yeah, feeling pretty good. I need to get this engine from here somehow up this little curb, down there, and then into my garden. Not looking forward to it. That's not going to work. I think it's too heavy. Plan B. That close. That close.
You did it last time?
Yeah, I think I did it like this. I can't really remember. It's an absolute ball ache though, I know that. It wasn't safe, it wasn't pretty, but we got it done. It's all about that driveway mechanic life. I just keep telling myself that. So, I mean, taking the engine out was actually really easy. That was easier than the Mini. One, because I knew what I was doing. Two, because the engine is about half the size as well. It's just unfortunate that my engine crane is quite literally about 1 inch too wide at the feet to just fit through that gate nicely. But we got there in the end. So if you've enjoyed watching me half kill myself to death, I would very much appreciate it if you took the 1 nanosecond to subscribe to my channel. There's a button just here and you go, just press it. Thank you ever so much. If you're watching this on Easter Sunday, happy Easter to you. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one where we'll try and get these engines switched over.